Good morning, Grace Vineyard, for our last meeting of 2020. And welcome to those who are watching this online. This is our last message of the year, a year that I think many of us would love to forget. A year that has taken us through some highs and lows, and a year that God has done things in our hearts. Welcome. And I trust that you will join us today as we look back and look forward.
I was joking with our reading group that I'd been given 3 books for Christmas, plus one Tracy had lent me, so the church might just get a story read to them instead of a message. So here goes. What is the story of your life? Can you look back over the years, and I have many, at the highs and lows, the loves and losses, the times you've walked with Jesus, and the times you've walked away? Our lives are the stories about what we have experienced and what we hope to do. As we look back and say farewell to 2020, probably with a huge sigh of relief to have actually got through it, I'm sure we face 2021 with some trepidation and hopes for a very different year. A story of what we can expect in 2021 is brewing, and it doesn't look good. A new strain of COVID, more places in higher tiers with more restrictions, and no end in sight. Infections and death rates rising, mass unemployment, political turmoil, the list goes on. Whatever happens, we will have to steer a course into and through 2021 and decide how we are going to navigate in it and face all that it impinges on our hopes and plans. How, as Christ followers, might we get to the end of 2021, having received what God has planned and purposed for us? We're invited into His story, to stop worrying about the future, to stop trying to control the situation and forcing life to give us what we think we want or deserve, and instead to embrace one spiritual practice, a new one, to walk backwards into 2021. And thanks to the wonderful Jason Swan Clark, Senior Pastor of Sutton Vineyard, for the inspiration. We can use 2021 as an opportunity to look back on our lives and to assess the story we have already been living, to discover where it has been part of God's story and where not. In other words, to discover our future by looking back at our past. Was your life running on certain tracks you'd laid down that COVID might have disrupted? Our future stories will be determined by the stories we've been living in the past. And the best way to walk into this uncertain future is to walk backwards, to see where we have been and where God has been, and pay less attention to worrying about the future. The future will take care of itself when we live a better story. Jesus makes a promise to us, an invitation to live His way. In Matthew 6, He warns us in no uncertain terms not to plan our futures around things that have no eternal value. Instead, we are invited into a different story, the story of the kingdom of God, where all the things we need in life are taken care of.
Let's read Matthew 6:25 to 34 in the Message. If you decide for God, living a life of God worship, it follows that you don't fuss about what's on the table at meal times or whether the clothes in your closet are in fashion. There is far more to your life than the food you put in your stomachs, more to your outer appearance than the clothes you hang on your body? Look at the birds, free and unfettered, not tied down to a job description, careless in the care of God. And you count far more to Him than birds. Has anyone by fussing in front of the mirror even gotten taller by so much as an inch? All this time and money wasted on fashion. Do you think it makes that much difference? Instead of looking at the fashions, walk out into the fields and look at the wildflowers. They never primp or shop, but have you ever seen colour and design quite like it? The 10 best dressed men and women in the country look shabby alongside them. If God gives such attention to the appearance of wildflowers, most of which are never ever seen, don't you think He'll attend to you, take pride in you, do His best for you? What I'm trying to do here is to get you to relax, to not be so preoccupied with getting, so you can respond to God's giving. People who don't know God and the way He works fuss over these things, but you know both God and how He works. Steep your life in God reality, God initiative, God provisions. Don't worry about missing out. You'll find all your everyday human concerns will be met. Give your entire attention to what God is doing right now, and don't get worked up about what may or may not happen tomorrow. God will help you deal with whatever hard thing comes up when the time comes. We need not worry. In John 16:33, Jesus is quoted as saying, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." Jesus does not deny the struggles of life, but He promises His peace if we will live our story with Him. Many of us want to live our lives our way, pleasing ourselves and making our own plans until something happens that forces us to reassess our lives in the light of the disaster or tragedy we face. And this changes our perspective completely. Tragedies like this interrupt the plan we had for the future and leave us shaken and uncertain. I'm sure you've all faced some disruptions in your lives, and COVID has affected all of us in different ways. It is often only when pain and suffering interrupt our lives that we are forced to pause and question what is really important to us in our walk with God.
So, how do we start to walk backwards into the future? We look back and are honest about the direction of our lives and the choices we've made. And we look for the thread of where God has been active in our stories, calling us, inviting us, carrying us, leading and guiding us. Can we see His promise of never leaving us or forsaking us, and how His protection and love have covered us when we felt so alone or unable to go on? During COVID, if we're honest, our biggest disappointments were mostly due to things not going as we expected or wanted. There is a world of difference, in fact, an eternal difference, between the stories we create and expect God to provide for us, and the life we live when God is the author of our stories. So let's turn around and start walking backwards into 2021. Whatever 2021 brings is now the occasion for God to create the stories of our lives. So here are some thoughts. At the beginning of each year, we usually encourage you to choose your one word for the year. This is when you wait on God and ask Him what He wants you to focus on for the year. Sometimes you have a whole pile of words that come to you, and you have to write them down, keep adding to them, and then whittle them down until you have your one word. Sometimes one word just jumps out at you from the start, and you know that is what God is calling you to focus on. This year, Johnny's word was gratitude, and I wonder how he found that comforting or challenging as he walked through 2020. One year, Debbie chose abundance, and Mark immediately changed it to a bun dance, and we couldn't get the silly image out of our heads. We've shared our word with friends and been reminded of it in our connect groups, and I know mine really helped me to stay focused this year. My one word was witness, and I was really confused when COVID struck and we went into lockdown. How was I supposed to witness when I was self-isolating? After a few strong words and one-sided conversations with God on the subject of how I was to live my story as a witness when I couldn't see anyone, I stopped and listened, and He gave me a way to live my story with Him. He helped me craft meditations, which I sent out to the church each week. They were also uploaded to Facebook and YouTube and were followed by friends all over the world, as well as by some people I didn't even know. It was also a reminder to me when I was wobbling and God asked the question, "Where is your gaze?" It helped me to focus on Him and to let Him write my story once again when I was reminded to be His witness, to bring hope and comfort to those in need. I already have my one word for 2021, and it's hope. Do you know the Bible in its various translations has hope 316 times? That's nearly one for every day of the year. What really surprised me was how many times the word hope appeared in the book of Job. If anyone needed hope, Job certainly did. In Romans 8:24 and 25, we're told, "Hope that is seen is no hope at all. Who hopes what they already have? But if we hope for what we do not have, we wait for it patiently." There are so many lessons in there to take into my story with God for 2021. And I will gain courage when I look back on my story and see how God has given me hope when I have despaired and He has brought me through. Romans 12:12 says, "Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer."
As we walk backwards into 2021, Gill and I, along with all the pastors in the Vineyard UK and Ireland, have been invited by John and Debbie Wright to begin 2021 with 21 days of prayer and fasting. This is something that they have been doing for a number of years and have always invited the pastors to join in with them. Normally, this would be partly to prepare us for the Vineyard UK and Ireland National Leaders Conference held annually during the last week of January, as well as to prepare us to hear from God for the year ahead. This year, because of COVID, the NLC is not happening. Instead, the online Vineyard National Gathering is taking place. More will be shared about that in the new year. Prayer and fasting is something that many of us struggle with, but it has been part of our story. Gill and I have gone through phases where we have been very diligent and regular in our fasting times. But it is a spiritual practice that is very easy to let slip. John and Debbie have sent out a 21-day plan with subjects and prayer points for every day, covering a wide range of topics for us to be praying into. Gill and I would love it if you choose to do this with us. John and Debbie are not prescriptive in the way we fast. That's left up to each individual to decide. Some days it might be skipping one meal. Other days might be vegetables only. Other days it could be liquids only. It is up to you to decide how you want to fast. Gill and I are going to begin on Monday, the 4th of January. Can I encourage you to join us over these 21 days so prayer and fasting becomes part of your story? I will send an email out early each morning with the subject and prayer points for the day, so you know what we are fasting and praying for. Please be encouraged to join in with us and the other pastors and churches around the UK and Ireland as we fast for these 21 days.
Won't you join with us as we walk backwards together into 2021, working our story into God's story for us?